Hi guys, Forgetful Scholar, and let's chat about books. Yes, 2 books this week. Also, don't mind voice. I'm getting over a really bad cold that knocked me out for a couple of days. And colds always take a little longer for me to get over, so I'm going to try to speak as loudly as I can. And honestly, this is as loud as if my voice was normal, this would be shouting. So here we go. Okay, so this week it's Mutual Crush and Evil Dominion equals Corporation. I had a lot of fun this week. And by happenstance, both books were like workplace romances, which is interesting considering how different they really are. So this week I'm going to start with the MM Contemporary Paranormal Supernatural sci-fi book called Data Sets, The Science of Magic, Book 1 by Meredith Spies. Now she's a new author that I'm getting to, and this seems to be one of her earlier works. And this is Mutual Crush one. Sorry. So the 2 main characters are Drew and Orion. Okay? And this is sort of sci-fi because it reminded me of the movie with Chris Evans and Dakota Fanning, Push. Anybody else remember that movie? Where there was like a subset of people who had psychic abilities, and the government wanted to round them up. You know what I mean? So it reminded me of that. Except this is more like magic fell from the stars, and some people have these magical bloodlines, and these bloodlines are running out. The magic is no longer as potent as used to be, and not everybody has magic. There are people who are considered mundanes, or normal, or whatever. Drew is a normal mundane. He doesn't have any magic abilities. Neither does, well, as far as Orion's concerned, he doesn't. All the blood tests come back as negative, and in this world, it's the wrong day for me to forget my water downstairs, huh? And in this world, if you have magic, you have like the top jobs and things like that. So Drew has a crush on Orion, and Orion has a crush on Drew, and they work at the same company called the acronyms come out to HEAL, HEEL. But they never really talked, but they have mutual crushes. And you could tell this is one of the earlier novels because there were points where the world building was really sparse, and it kind of took for granted that you would know what they're talking about, to heavy info dump. But you do see like signs of their style kind of taking form, which I always find really fascinating. So I enjoyed that part. This I would say was a 3 stars. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad either. I could see points where maybe it could have been a little streamlined. And this is under the romance category. And the secondary storyline of like the government hoarding magic users, basically, and this other corporation that isn't as successful as HEAL is trying to protect the magic users. So that's the secondary storyline. But the secondary storyline kind of takes over. And the romance storyline kind of goes by the wayside. I mean, they're cute and everything, Orion and Drew. It's just I wanted more of their romance growing. We didn't get a lot of that. It was kind of like, I would say, in the end of the first half of the book, like I always think of books as like three parts. So at the end of the first half of the book, part 1, it seemed like the book kind of changed directions completely, because I thought this would be like sort of an office romance in a more magical setting, and then it just kind of went boom, evil corporation, indie good corporation on the run, what the fuck is going on? So it really changed gears really quickly. Really quickly. And I was like, oh, okay. And normally I'll be all about that, but it didn't feel flow. didn't feel like a flow. It felt very choppy. And again, I still enjoyed the book. Like, it wasn't a bad thing. It's just, you could kind of tell before a writer kind of gets their voice completely, so that's what this felt like. Their voice hadn't completely come into their own yet. So it wasn't horrible. I still enjoyed myself. And this is gonna surprise you guys, but I thought too much banter. And you know me, I usually really enjoy banter. I like the interplay between characters. I like it to feel real. I like it to be realistic. I like it to flow. I like that where we find out most about our characters, not just info dumps. That being said, there were points where it was like, oh gosh, this is still happening, and not even between the main characters, but like between Orion and his best friend, who is in I think one of the love romances in the second book of this series. Sorry, I have to catch my breath. Like, there was so much banter going on all the time, to the point was like, you're cutting into your own story flow. Like, oh my gosh, are they safe? They have to get to somewhere safe. Oh, here's like 5 pages of banter. Jesus Christ. So it really cut a lot of the tension, and there wasn't enough banter, I feel, between the romance leads. Because if there was more banter between them, then I could feel like, oh, they're flirting. But it didn't really happen. And the banter between them, depending on whose POV you were in, I was kind of like, man, they're being an asshole. So when you're in Orion's POV and he's talking to Drew, I was like, he's kind of being bitchy. And the writer had Orion think like, man, I'm being an asshole today. Yeah, you kind of are. And then when I went to Drew, kind of the same thing. Like, it was weird. I didn't feel like there was enough of a chemistry between the two leads for me to be like, oh, happy ending, which I wanted. They were both sweet. And I liked how they both have very distinct personalities and personality quirks. But I just felt like the secondary storyline took over. Which, I mean, it's a very interesting second storyline. Very, very interesting. And I don't want to give a lot of it away because it's very, like, tightly packed. So I feel like if I give too much away, you would be able to guess most of it. So I'm going to keep it vague, like, But it's a very interesting second storyline, but it took over. Now, if the second book was the same to love interests, I think then the writer could have let it flow a little bit more and then get together in the second book, So it just felt, the romance felt a little rushed and a little forgotten about, which is too bad. Now, again, I really liked the first book I read from this author, and I didn't hate this one. It's just sort of like an like a meh. It's okay. Not my favorite of their works, but I don't hate it either, Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have filmed today, but I don't know. I wanted to, so there we go. So the second book, Evil Dominion equals corporation, ? So this one had me laughing and coughing, and then coughing and laughing, and then coughing. It's a thing. Anyway, so like, this one I had to say 5 stars. And this is a novella. It's about 80 to 85 pages. And like, the title hooked me from the second, because I am a big nerd who enjoys Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, and how can I not, and love romance novels, obviously, and how can I not read a book called Love, Laugh, Lynch by Kate, I think it's Pierre Poirier. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but it's very pretty. So if you're not a huge geek who plays Dungeons and Dragons, Liches are a really hard monster to kill. Like, one of the top level monsters. If you're fighting a Lich, if you see a Lich and you're only like, and you're not, I don't know, you're like under level 10, get the fuck out of there. Like, you're gonna die, okay? Even if you see a Lich and you're level 10, get out of there, you're gonna die. You have to find their refectory, which is kept in a completely different spot. And I'm devolving into Dungeons and Dragons, so I will stop. Okay, alright, so this one, This one had me laugh. 5 stars. I was giggling the whole time just because I'm a nerd. Anyway, and I loved how I'm gonna recommend this to one of my dear friends because their humor is very much like if hell had paperwork kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And that's what this was like. So it's basically a corporation called the Evil Dominion. And the main girl, this is FM, contemporary, paranormal, monster romance. And the human name is Lily. And the dark Lynch Lord, his name is Sovin. Okay, so he's like the head honcho of the corporation, like the CEO, and she's his personal assistant. It's and the first page, a description of like desk work in an office. I was like, yeah, this is amazing. This author has put their time in an office because yes, those are the tiny little annoying things that happen in an office that wouldn't bother you normally, but since you're at work, it bothers the patootie out of you, at least for me. But I'm a neurotic mess. Anyway, so Lily is the one thing in this book I like the least, but I still really liked her, okay? So she kind of has a crush on her boss. And she even knows it's weird, you know, because he's just this floating cloak, faceless thing. But like he's when they're alone, like when she's giving his messages or you know things like that, he's kind of socially awkward and adorable to her. So I like that we saw that. So we kind of get like she's not attracted. She doesn't have a crush on him because of physical, but she's attracted to him because he's like this evil god king, but still like really dorky and socially awkward. And I was like, okay, I get what's going. I will say the sex scenes. Well, if you don't read monster romances, then maybe the sex scene isn't for you. But it's like a typical monster sex scene. When she described what was going on down there, I was like, okay, I know what's gonna happen. All right, fine. You know what I mean? And you know, if you read a lot of monster romances, you'll get what I mean. So anyway, she was a little annoying just because she had a lot of naivete for someone who works for the Evil Dominion. I'm sorry, it still makes me giggle. And I love that her best friend is the HR department, who is the next book that I'm definitely gonna read because I had so much fun in this one. I mean, it just cracks me up. Like the Evil Dominion has an HR department, human resource department. Like, what do you even do? Like it's so good. So anyway, so to help with one of his spells, she volunteers to help with one of his spells, and there's like a line that's a little crossed, you know, that before it wasn't. And you get the feeling through the writing that maybe Savon had a little feelings for her too before this line was crossed. So there's a lot of miscommunication going on until the end. And like, yeah, it's a happily ever after for like, you know, dark Dominion romance novel. And it's not a dark romance. Like there's no BDSM or anything like that. There's no trigger warnings that you have to worry about, things like that. It's just like he's a Lynch. Like but you know, I love that. I love when writers turn that kind of black and white good and evil on their head. I always find that fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people do too. So it's a good read. There is something that I wanted to talk about with this book that I completely forgot. The world building. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So the world building was fantastic. It was well balanced. You got what was going on. It wasn't an info dump, and it didn't feel like it was lacking in description. It was very concise, and it also didn't take over the book. I'm always fascinated with writers who write novellas and then still build this incredible world with just a few sentences. It's fantastic. Because I feel like that's got to be one of the hardest things, right? World building and making it a well-balanced experience. That's why I'm not too hard on authors that are a little heavy-handed with it. I rather heavy-handed than sparse, you know? I don't know. This doesn't feel like a first novel. This really doesn't feel like a first novel. The author's voice was very clear, very confident, very concise. And I don't know if you could hear my neighbor doing yard work when I have no voice. Okay, I'm gonna talk like this now. No, not that hurts. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to cut this short because oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, I don't think this was their first work because it's just their voice was so confident and they knew what they were doing. You felt like they knew what they were doing, and it was a fun ride and it was a quick ride. Again, I was laughing. This hit my humor like really right there with the absurdity of it. I liked the because in the beginning she was like, well, you know, it's not so different when the evil dominion took over from the CEO, because corporate life is corporate life. I mean, they didn't say corporate life is corporate life, but like that's what I was thinking about it when reading it. Like corporate life is purgatory. Yeah, totally get it. So like I thought it was really funny. I liked the connection between the two. Lily was the one that bothered me the most, but you know, but I still like the story. And honestly, if you take into account that she's human, he's a lynch monster, of course there's going to be miscommunication. But I just don't think that the reader has to impart that with their own thinking. Like, it should be spelled out. Because it's a book, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I had a good time. I had a good time with both these books. And it's what I needed because, man, this cold stinks. And yeah, I was tested for flu and the vid and everything. No, it's just negative. Just plain old common cold. Just a really intense strand that's been floating around my friend group and stuff for a while. So I'm surprised I didn't get it earlier. Anyway, that's enough boring stuff. I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you later. Bye.